me be clear.
I am
You peddle false narrative.
Sexy boo.
We'll see who cancels who.
Watch me.
So we're going to start off with Jordan Neely. If you've seen the videos, if you've read articles, you know that this man was homeless, had countless arrests, a little over 40. He died at the age of 30 in the hands of a former Marine who was 24 years old. He was known locally with some people as a Michael Jackson impersonator. He used to dance on the subways and stuff like that. And this guy was choked out for about 15 minutes. You heard that right, 15 minutes. And the question is who to blame here. I see a lot of blame people talking about, obviously the person that killed him, which of course it's on him for killing him. People want to talk about what about the people on the train, what they could have done, what they didn't do, what should have they done, or should they have done anything. But let me get into it here with a blame that I'm going to point a finger at besides the obvious. Okay? New York City failed Jordan Neely. New York City failed him. And let me tell you why. So, if you're not a New York resident, you probably don't know this and you probably don't care. And that's fine. You're not supposed to really know this. I don't know everything that's going on in another state, in their city. I don't know minor things. But I do because I live in New York City. And let me tell you something about New York City. About a few years ago, in 2021, we had an election. Mayor Adams. Now, he won the election. And previously, we had Mayor Bill DeBlasio, which was a real winner. Andrew knows. So, this guy gets into office, right? And, man, doing a terrible job. We thought we couldn't get worse, and it got worse. But specifically, they were going to start this whole mental health program. It was going to be called Thrive NYC. So this is exactly, I'm going to read you from nyc.gov, their website, okay? The Mayor's Office of Operations partners with the Deputy Mayor for Strategic Policy Initiatives and the First Lady's team on the implementation of Thrive NYC. So the First Lady would, of course, be Mayor de Blasio's wife. The city's roadmap to create a mental health system that works for all New Yorkers. Operations provides project and performance management support, tracks Thrive NYC initiatives, and coordinates agencies in the development and implication of policies. Operations also manage the elevations of multiple initiatives. So that is directly from the site nyc.gov. Okay, great. So now that you have that information there, they were given, or I'll put it this way, de Blasio's wife was given $1 billion to play with here. So that's the money that they were playing. So they were basically in like a sandbox because $1 billion is a lot of money. So how it's supposed to go is like, okay, well, you're going to spend $250 million a year for the next, set amount of years, right? Until you get to $1 billion. And so they questioned about it a few years later. It was like 2018, 2019. Questions started coming. Well, what'd you do? Where's the money? Where'd it go to? And they didn't know what to really say. They were just saying all this stuff, whatever. But in reality, half or most of their expenses, they couldn't even list in court. They couldn't even list anything. Anything. They had minor stuff. But the large sum of money, $1 billion, you can't figure out where that went. So they lost the $850 million. Where did it go?
According to Thrive, every year, 20% of adult New Yorkers are likely to be diagnosed with a mental health disorder. So we filed Freedom of Information requests with more than a dozen city agencies. We asked for annual budgets and itemized expenditures for the 59 programs under Thrive's umbrella, all based on a list from First Lady Charlene McRae's office. The initial response? Silence. After 2 months of delays, we contacted each agency and the First Lady's office to ask what was going on. All of a sudden, the answers started coming in. It is not what we expected. McRae's office actually gave us a smaller number of programs under Thrive's umbrella, 37, down from 59, and cites program changes between this fiscal year and the next. And while a number of agencies did respond to our latest round of inquiries, most failed to include itemized expenditures. And the budget from McRae's office did not include any expenditures at all. More troubling, we learned some of Thrive's programs get outside funding.
I will tell you, I believe it went right into their pockets. Because it definitely did not go into New York City, and definitely did not go into the people of New York City. That's who failed him. That's really who failed him. And it's upsetting because then we could go to the two-party structure here. People said, oh, well, if you vote for a Republican, they're better than the Democrats. Okay, you can have that back and forth, but Democrats were supposed to be big on mental health, at least in this moment. Obviously, New York voted for another Democrat. Not that the Republicans had, the best player out there for mayor, but they keep voting Democrat. There's a reason why New Yorkers keep voting Democrat. Now, you could go on, they're dumb, they're this, they're that, and you could go on your whole spiel, and that's fine if you think that way. But mental health is become more of a crisis each and every single day. When you give someone the keys to the kingdom of, okay, this is your job now. You're here to help us. You're here to help the people. You are a public servant. They failed at that. So when you get asked who failed Jordan Neely, who killed Jordan Neely? Yeah, it was the former Marine. Yeah, of course, that's the obvious answer. But the real answer is New York City. They have failed him, and he's not the first. And unfortunately, this will not be the last. This is one of those situations that I hate to say this, but it did not have to happen, but it had to happen. It's one of those instances where, of course, it didn't have to happen. We could have just had a program. We could have had Thrive NYC going throughout all the 5 boroughs and going to help with $1 billion with everybody's needs. Of course, it didn't happen. So now what are people going to do? People are going to start talking about mental health. Now you just got to have to hope that this conversation still continues, so then New York could actually do something about it. That's the problem. Because then if it doesn't happen, it's just going to repeat itself again. And this doesn't have to happen. It doesn't. But it does because people won't do anything about it. And that's the problem. It's so aggravating that this stuff happens. I mean, you look at it. You look at 9/11. What happened after 9/11? You saw metal detectors in the airports. Okay, that's a solution. That's a solution. Why don't we have solutions to problems? And there's going to be other talks later on, probably in another episode, because this episode is so compact where we talk about mass shootings. But metal detectors works, folks. Mental health institutions work if you have them up, if you fund it. So that's the problem we're dealing with. And that's the majority of what I have to say on the matter. Really upsetting issue, and we're just going to have to hope that they do something about it.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, obviously, that this happened, and there's so many structural problems, right? Just in terms of the circumstances, obviously, that led Neely to that point where he was on the train, having a mental health break and just being in that situation as a homeless man. And then also, the guy that killed him, like, choking him out and stuff. And not just the fact that he did that, but the fact he wasn't charged for it, because it shows that Neely wasn't. So he's homeless. He doesn't really have anyone to represent him in like a court of law to really properly play justice out. So there really is like like a tier system of like how much people value life on like a legal sense too. And maybe him being a Marine kind of made it so that like him being charged wasn't like a super high priority as well. It's just a lot of issues all around. And to go back to the point of homelessness, it's really sad that being homeless is basically like it's like a game set match. It can vary to the extent to which people obviously suffer or whatever from it, but by default, just being homeless, like you don't know what you're really gonna like. You don't know what your day to day is gonna be like at all. So some people, I mean, if you're like in a community with a lot of homeless people, you'll notice that they'll stay in certain spots, usually by shelter, sometimes not. And they do that too because it's like they know like the areas that they can stay in, they stay out. It's something that really doesn't get emphasized a lot, especially when it comes to outcomes in electoral politics, because obviously poor people in general don't vote, and especially if you're not homeless, you're probably the last thing you're thinking about is like what party is in control of like the government. So they really don't have like a say in this, and obviously like I think Neely's an example of someone who basically had like a lifelong, lived like born in poverty, probably spent most or all of his adult life homeless. But it's not just people who like are always poor. Sometimes people just kind of end up in a bad spot or have something happen to them, and then they're out of a home. And the process to get back to that point, it's tough. I mean, because your mental health deteriorates. Having certain things that you would have in a home, because your physical health also will deteriorate in a lot of cases if you don't have like that structure. Um, Jobs often you need like a home. Like it's actually crazy, like because you need like an address to like apply for jobs for them to keep in contact with you. It's really tough to break out of that cycle. Most people aren't going to do that. So to Chris's point, yeah, having institutions that are more well funded and developed would have probably saved his life. And the fact that they dropped the ball so hard and lost the funds for it. In a case, I
I
mean, there was
lost.
an investigation into it, but regardless of what happened to it, that money didn't go to where it needed, and this death happened as a result. It's really a shitty thing that happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And for them to lose that money, um, I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it really shows you don't care. Like it really, I don't know how much more of these cases are we gonna see pop up to the point where it's like, oh, maybe we should do something about this.
Well, not
Apparently,
all of them are. That's just the thing too. Is that, like you said it in the sense where you felt like it had to happen. Obviously, it shouldn't, but because those
yeah.
circumstances are there, it's something that's going to put it into the public sphere of, hey, this is a problem. Because most issues with homelessness are kind of like day to day, whatever. Like you're not going to notice it. Most people don't think about homelessness. Like even if you see homeless people, like on your commute, you'll see a lot in New York, but
Oh
you're
yeah.
not. It's not something that sticks in most people's minds. It's something that's just in the background, or it's like an inconvenience to them because they're being loud or they're asking me for money or whatever.
A
But
lot of these people too, like it's unfortunate, but not the actual homeless people. A lot of people dress up as homeless to make money.
yeah, I
It's
can imagine
kind of
that's a big thing
crazy.
in like around Times Square.
There's a story I actually heard. Someone that I know, and he was working in the city, and he knows this homeless guy that's sitting there, or homeless. Um, and he's sitting there, and someone passes by him, and he's been there for years, and somebody found him after all these years, being like, "Hey, I don't know his name," and he says, "Aren't you supposed to be home, or this or that?" Apparently, he has like a wife, kids, a big house. Like, it's just like, now thinking about it, it's really funny to me. I mean, it's really upsetting, I guess, in the sense of like there's actual homeless people out there that really need the attention and all that. But we're New Yorkers, you don't really give if if you were to walk on the street and give people money, I mean, you really just be emptying your wallet with how many people you could really give on the street. So I mean, that's why you need programs. That's why you need institutions because guys
Yeah,
like us
charity
can't be
isn't
walking up
super
and down,
sustainable.
And what I was gonna say earlier actually is apparently I think Mayor Adams is actually putting forth a mental health institution, but this is I think before the Neely thing. I was looking a little into that, so we'll see what happens there. But I don't really. I was not gonna
Oh, but
mention
the
that at
problem with him
first,
is that
but
he's like also defunding a lot of these
yeah,
programs at
of
the same time as he's
course,
doing it. The
yeah.
emphasis on like policing based solutions for a lot of these issues with homelessness or crime or whatever, like it's it's what New York has been kind of prioritizing for like a long time. Whatever petty things that DeBlasio says, like at the end of the day, he kind of continued the status quo in terms of the NYPD in a lot of ways. Like even when he defunded the police, like that was like basically just redistributing like
It is
it was like
redistributed
keeping
funds, yeah.
yeah, he just kind of swapped the funds around, but it still was effectively going to the same thing. I think he just declassified or changed the classification of certain
Yeah.
police work as other work, but effectively the same thing.
I think it was something with like the crossing guards were instead of like
Yeah, it
cops,
was
it was
like
like
stuff like
DOE
that.
instead. Like stuff like that. And I mean, I'm sure some little things were cut too, but it really wasn't like all that. But New York City needs someone who is really going to put forth good ideas, good policies, and actually sign them, bring them to the table, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And that's why if you look in the 20 was it just last year 2022 the governor race, yeah,
Yeah, it was very close.
Governor Hochul, I mean she was never
she
voted
very
in. It was because you
she
know
kind of I mean, it
Cuomo
was
was
like
there,
comfortable, but it was like
but he had to
doable
resign.
for is that Zeldin, right? What's his name? Lee Zeldin.
Lee Zeldin, yeah, it was very doable. He
But
lost
I
by
will say
300,000.
you talked about how, people in New York keep voting Democrat. I think part of it too is that the Democrat institution in places like New York and Cali, because it's basically like effectively a one-party state, the people that control the state are like, the wealthier financial interest types. It's not the underdogs, the people trying to actually win on their ideas. It's the status quo for these
Of
states.
course, it's liberal elites that keeps voting these people in, and
Well, it's the
that's
ones
it.
in the power. I mean, obviously, to some extent, the base does vote for these guys as well when if the ones that do vote in general elections, but
Mhm.
in terms of the representation, it is centrist and elites and stuff like that.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. I mean, Lee Zeldin. I mean, if you don't know,
Like
um,
Adams, it kind of like he's like for like this elitism type stuff, but he was also voted in by like working class people, like
I
working
don't
class
know
like
how
black
they.
people. But it's like you know him personally, especially for something like a mayor, like
Mhm.
that stuff is really important.
If
So
none of you guys know, 300,000 New York is like for a Republican to get that close is very good for them. And I'll say
yeah,
this, Cuomo, when he was running for his last governor race, he lost. Oh no, no, sorry, he won by like over a million. I think it was
yeah, I think
1.6,
two
something like that.
things definitely when it
Landslide,
comes to that is that one, Cuomo has better name recognition, like he's just
of
more known,
course.
and two, like I said, I mean the Democrats keep are running Republican like style campaigns where it's like they the Republicans will have all these criticisms of the blue states, and the Democrats in the blue states are like, yeah, that's true, that's why we're gonna like meet halfway with you. But the problem is that if you're meeting halfway with them, the people who are voting on those issues are just gonna vote for the full thing. If you're like, yeah, crime's a real issue, we need to, fund the police a good amount. It's like, well, if I care about funding the police, I'm just gonna vote for the people who are gonna fund it more or be more pro police than you're being.
Hmm.
That's a trap that, the establishment neoliberal Democrats find themselves in all the time.
Yeah, and if you look at someone like Adams, like he was a true centrist
Yeah, and I mean
all the way.
that's what he plays into
You,
too.
you guys heard
Obviously,
my
I think Adams'
banter.
race was a lot further though, or a lot more for him because I think the Republican. I think he did okay, but I feel like I remember his name, but
Oh, Sliwa?
Sliwa, yeah.
He was never gonna win.
He was like
And
known a little bit, but
yeah, but a
he
lot of
wasn't
people that knew him were like, I don't know, because I don't know if you saw the debate. Did you see the debate between him and Adams?
it was like it was like 2 years ago. I'm not gonna remember.
Okay, it was a yell fest. The guy, because the problem is a lot of Republicans feel like they want to be like Trump, but like he was really like trying to hack it in and like just be annoyingly yelling, like not like Trump, but like I mean like he wanted to be like him, but like he, and a lot of
It's all of
people,
them, yeah.
yeah, but no, but this was pretty bad, Andrew. This was bad. Uh, and I was like, oh my god, just do me a favor, please shut up, stop talking. It's not, and it's like I know that Sliwa. I've heard that he's a good guy. A lot of people have talked to him, whatever. He was a gangster. I don't really know more than he is a gangster, and he was nice that people met him. Because I talked to people who met him and everything. But you know what? He's running for office. Of course, he's gonna be nice. But even besides that, I've heard he did good things. But still, man, it wasn't the cut. It wasn't it. Like there could have been a good Republican to run against Adams, and man, like probably still would have lost, but still would have had a better shot. Um,
Yeah,
but
definitely, it's the
yeah,
case that the Democrats in New York need to definitely embrace their younger base and their more like the more progressive aspects of the party. Because if they keep
yeah.
kind of meddling, it's not going to be too long before Republicans start turning New York into a more
But even
competitive
then,
city.
there's some like I'm not gonna get too far into it. But there's some well, like I guess more progressive esque policy that are not working for New York City. So you also have that at play because I think they picked the wrong ones, especially for a city like New York. So you know, we'll see how this plays out. Um, and also another thing I'm going to mention with Jordan Neely that I totally did not mention earlier. Um, his mother actually died. I think when he was like 14. I think actually by her ex boyfriend at the time, and she got choked out. They died the same way. And I was like,
Tragic.
wow, that is one of the
It's
most
freaky
tragic things.
too.
Yeah, it's freaky. It's really freaky. Um, and another thing to mention is that that's when he started to go like, where his mental health really started taking a toll. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, your mom just got choked out. I mean, it's a horrific thing. I mean, you don't want to know that.
Yeah.
Of course not. Of course he wasn't going to be right. Yeah, he punched a 67-year-old woman. Yeah, he belongs in jail for that. But guess what? There was a lot of things he did before that, and no one took that as a sign. Like, oh yeah, he belongs in a mental health institution. We really got to that point. We had to punch the 67-year-old woman. Come on. Like he has 4, I think, assault cases against him. He had one where he was on search in like 2021. I mean, obviously this guy is not normal. He's not. You can't put him in a group with other people and say, "Oh yeah, it's fine." Because look what happened. Look what happened. He got himself. He basically got himself killed. And it's all in New York's hands. All in New York City's hands. And until that's fixed, we're gonna see more of these. And it's a problem. It really is. And I hope it gets solved soon because this is something that's been in the talks for years. This is where everyone in New York's tax dollars are going to. We have no idea. 850 million? I don't know. So it's rough. It really is. And we just hope they do something about it before something else happens.